The Predator series has had its series of ups and downs, hasn't it? Whether he's in a jungle, or the city, or fighting xenomorphs in Antarctica, this is a creature with a lot of history in films, comic books, and video games. I love this creature, but I can't say that I've loved all the films, so we're going to look at them all here today. Here's my ranking of the Predator series from worst to best. Number 6, you've probably guessed it's AVP Requiem, and honestly, how could it not be? This is not only the worst film in the Predator series, but in the Alien series as well, and given what we've gotten from both franchises, that's saying something. This movie takes place directly after the first Alien vs. Predator film. The alien ship is attacked by the Predalien and crashes into a suburban town on Earth, where aliens run amok and a single Predator is left to come clean up the mess. And in the end, it's up to a bunch of I know what you did last summer rejects to save the day. Why do you all look so glum? You should be happy, like me! The acting, the writing, the directing, the lighting. Literally, everything about this movie is a damn train wreck. The Strauss brothers do have an extensive career in special effects, but they are terrible directors. And if this movie doesn't prove it to you, trust me, Skyline will. You'd think people who have a background in special effects would know how to light a scene properly, but my god is this film dark. It's so dark that you can barely see anything half the time. When the aliens and predators fight, it's always at night and you can't see any of it. I'm glad you went back to animatronics and guys in suits, but if I can't see any of it, I don't care! This movie has no identity to speak of. They have a mother and a daughter in this film that are basically just ghetto versions of Ripley and Newt. They have a cop named Morales, which I guess is a callback to the reporter in Predator 2. The main character's name is Dallas. Yeah, they got that lazy with this one. This film does absolutely nothing new, with the exception of maybe putting aliens in suburbia, but why the fuck would we want to see that? So, yeah, this film's awful. Avoid it at all costs. And number 5 is the newest film in this franchise, The Predator. Now, I reviewed this film just last year, so I'll leave the link to that review in the description. For now, I'll be brief on it. This is the one out of all the main entries that people seem to hate the most, and I can't really blame them, as this film is an incoherent mess. The studios did a lot of meddling with this film, and it clearly shows. The main character is beyond generic. The Saturday morning cartoon villain it tried giving us was completely unnecessary, and the film didn't make a whole lot of sense by the end. For me personally, the only things I really took away from it were the action and some of the side characters, who I thought were genuinely funny. Thomas Jane and Keegan Key especially had me laughing often. To me, these few elements were the only things holding the film together. Shane Black sadly did not get to make the movie he wanted to make due to studio meddling, which is a shame, as he is someone who has his roots embedded deep in this franchise, not only playing Hawkins in the original Predator, but also doing uncredited rewrites for the original Predator as well. Thanks to the studio, all we got was a botched mess with a few entertaining elements here and there. And sadly, it did not turn out to be a good movie by any stretch. And number 4 for me is going to be Alien vs. Predator. Now, Paul W.S. Anderson directed this spin-off of the Alien and Predator franchises because he was a devout fan. And honestly, for as much as I rip into this guy, I have to acknowledge effort when I see it because it's all over this movie. It was rather obvious re-watching this film that he poured his heart and soul into it. He's clearly a fan of both franchises, and he clearly gave it his all. It's not really that great a movie, but it's important to me to recognize effort when I see it. Paul W.S. Anderson not only went back to basics with guys in suits and animatronics, he also casted the film the same way Ridley Scott and James Cameron had casted their films. He casted a group of wonderful actors, but not actors that were too well known. Lance Henriksen's return to the franchise being the one notable exception. However, the one thing that Anderson doesn't really emulate well from that choice and it's a good choice, is that those films gave us time to care about these people. I loved Captain Dallas and his crew. I loved the Colonial Marines. The only character we're really given any time to know in this film is Alexa Woods, played by Sonya Lathan. Not that the other actors are bad, they're really not, but the lack of depth to their characters doesn't help them any. Almost every time we get a moment where a character could rise above stock and generic, they're killed off and we're left really not caring. So yeah, you have good actors, but we don't really care about their characters, and it's kind of a letdown. Now, the location of Antarctica is interesting for an alien movie. I get the sense that Anderson was trying to create the enclosed claustrophobic feel of the first film. To his credit, a pyramid hidden under Antarctica that constantly shifts around is pretty awesome, and it does lend the film some nice atmosphere. However, while good for an alien movie, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for a Predator movie. Predators have always shown up in areas of immense heat because they can only see in infrared. Why would they build a pyramid in the coldest place on Earth? Speaking of infrared, that kind of leads to another plot hole from Aliens. In Aliens, it's clearly established that the xenomorphs appear on motion scanners, but not infrared. This is why the Marines in the film weren't able to see them in the walls. I will give him this, though. When the aliens and predators are fighting each other, it's pretty awesome. That shot of the xenomorph tail impaling the predator out of nowhere is beautiful. So I guess that's something you can take away from this movie. It features some cool fights between the two title monsters, but they are sadly too few and far between. But in all honesty, if you haven't seen this movie in a while and have an hour and a half to 2 hours to kill, I'd say give it a watch. Coming in at number 3 for me is Predators. I remember seeing Predators in the theaters and really liking it. Not loving it, but liking it. Upon rewatch, my opinion really hasn't changed much on this film. It's a good Predator film in its own right. It was cool seeing the Predator planet, and the idea of a group of the world's most ruthless killers being pursued by the Predator was a great idea that was executed well. The issue we have here is miscasting. Adrien Brody. Oh, Adrian, no. Sometimes an actor you wouldn't actually see as a badass can actually pull off coming on screen and being a badass and proving you wrong. Off the top of my head, I can think of John Krasinski in 13 Hours. I can think of Michael Keaton in Batman, who really only did comedy. I can think of Bruce Willis in Die Hard. He only really did comedy before Die Hard. So, we've seen it before. It can happen. It just really did not work here. Adrien Brody is known mostly for A-list dramas, but in this film, it's like he's trying to do his best Christian Bale Batman impression, and it is not intimidating at all. I have nothing against the actor, but it wasn't the right casting. Lawrence Fishburne comes into the movie too, but he's not in it nearly enough, and his character comes across more weird than anything else. It makes sense for his character, but I honestly feel you could remove him completely and nothing would be different. Now, I used to have a serious issue with Topher Grace being in this movie, because I was kind of riding the Spider-Man 3 hate train, but rewatching this movie, him being casted actually makes the ending more surprising, because who the hell's gonna suspect that Topher Grace is a serial killer? It's actually perfect casting when you think about it, and he doesn't do a bad job at all. With all that said, the rest of the actors are all great. The setup is fun, the setting is creative and interesting for a Predator movie, and it does an admirable job at adding to the lore of the series. Whether it be the Predator action or the group of killers trying to survive together, Predators is certainly a more than worthy entry in this series, despite the few things that don't quite work about it. Number 2 for me is the original Predator. Oh yes! Oh yes! Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh god, I can see the hate mail flooding the inbox. Oh, yeah, let's do this. Now, make no mistake, I really love this movie. The violence, the suspense, the creature effects, and the fun group of actors that the film incorporates all help make Predator one of the most memorable and badass action films of all time, and I am not disputing that. That being said, I have always enjoyed the film in the number 1 spot more than this, and I'll explain why in a few. First, let's talk about Predator. Here, we see a group of commandos heading into the jungle to find survivors, only to end up in a fight for their very lives against an alien hunting them all for sport. It all leads to one final showdown in the end between Arnold and the Predator, mano a mano. Or mono-alien, what the hell ever. The combination of sci-fi and action is damn near flawless here. The characters, performances, and even the one-liners are very memorable. And in all fairness, "I ain't got time to bleed" is one of the most badass lines ever spoken in an action movie.
"You're hit. You're bleeding, man."
"I ain't got time to bleed."
"Oh. Okay."
Every bit of the action is on point, the film oozes with suspense and intrigue. John McTiernan is a director who knows what he's doing behind the camera. It's an interesting concept to see these big, rough commandos get taken out like common animals, the hunters becoming the hunted. It's such a cool idea that this movie perfected. I certainly understand why people love this movie the most, but it's never been my favorite, so let's get to number 1.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. Predator. The hunt begins Friday, June 12th at theaters everywhere.
And number 1 for me is the film that constantly gets ripped on and ridiculed in this series, Predator 2. I fucking love Predator 2. And if no one else is gonna stand up and defend it, fuck it, I'll do it myself. Predator gave us a simple concept, the toughest commandos on Earth getting slaughtered one by one in the jungle. Predator 2 took that concept further by placing the Predator in a new type of jungle. 1997 Los Angeles, a city at war, violent gangs roaming the streets, cops are in imminent danger, and the layout of the city gives the Predator some new territory to work with, as well as a whole new set of prey. The action in this film kicks Predator 1 in the balls. That's right, I said, what's up? What's up? You want some? Come on! I'm sorry, in no sick reality are you ever going to convince me that the first film had better action. The film took the intensity of the first film and cranked it up to fucking 11. Danny Glover, Bill Paxton, Maria Conchita Alonso, and Gary Busey. All of them are phenomenal. I love the back and forth with Glover and Busey. I don't think Glover has ever been more badass in a movie, to be honest, and I'm including Lethal Weapon 2 when I say that. Busey gives a great performance as someone who appears to be a villain, but given his motives, it's a lot more complicated than that. Bill Paxton is charming and hilarious, and he goes out like a badass because, let's face it, there ain't no other way for Bill Paxton to go out! The Predator violence is great throughout. I mean, it was great in the first film too. Don't think I'm taking anything away from that movie here. However, the environment that the Predator is in allows for a lot more creativity. In addition, I love the ending showdown in this film, and the implications it had for the Predator lore, establishing that predators have been coming here for years to hunt. Future Predator movies would expand on this as well. Predator 2 is the definition of a sequel done right. It expands the lore, it ups the tension, and offers something different for its audience instead of just giving us the same thing all over again.
Danny Glover, Gary Busey, Ruben Blades, Maria Conchita Alonso, Bill Paxton. Predator 2. He's in town with a few days to kill this Thanksgiving.
I will never understand the hate this movie gets. Predator 2 fucking rocks. But you know what? How would you rank this series? Please let me know in the comments, and please subscribe if you'd like to see more.